Okay, we are at the end of the first day. I gave this one 7 hours of sun, and that's a judgment call again. You just never really know until, I guess, your main clue, if you feel like you got roots and the cutting is healthy and the leaves are like this, see how they don't droop down? This one was drooping down a little bit. So I put it in the shade for a day, brought it back out. I knew from experience that since it was bare rooted a few weeks ago, but I had a good root system, but some of the roots fell off, I knew that it's warm enough, the roots will grow back fast enough. So I didn't really worry about stressing it out. What will happen is if you lose a huge chunk of a root ball and you have a lot of leaves out and you put it in this full sun, it'll start dropping leaves. And worse, I've had them die on me when I put them in the full sun when they don't have a root system to support the leaves above. Anyway, this is the one we did yesterday. This has had 7 hours of full sun. I'm not worried about it. Let's get the pyrometer on the leaves to see how well the transpiration is happening from the roots. Okay, we got 90, 98 there, 112 there, 102. It really depends on the angle the sun's coming to. 108. That's okay. It is a 90-degree day out again today. Again, if the leaves are really warm, you know that the moisture is not coming up from the roots and cooling off the leaves. So you start getting sunburn on some of the plants too. But in this case, we're not so much concerned about that. We're just concerned that the turgor pressure is still really good, and it is. Top leaf looks fine. This leaf is going to want to open up here in a few days after it gets acclimated. What we're doing is acclimating the plants. This is also a judgment call. If it's a healthy plant like we noticed yesterday, you feel like acclimation's not going to be that big a deal. If it would have come wrinkled, then I would have considered cutting off some of these leaves at the bottom. Because a wrinkled plant's a stress plant, in my opinion, in most cases, not always. But better safe than sorry on a lot of these. This one, like I explained yesterday, was not getting a lot of sun. I stuck it in with a mother plant. So I just took it out from the mother plant a couple weeks ago, and it's taking off now in its own pot. It didn't have a very good root system, hardly at all. But okay, let's go take a look at the other one. This is the one yesterday that we stuck in full sun. We are getting some shadows coming over from this pine tree here. Mid-afternoon shadows. Very frustrating for me to find full sun, but where are we? Aha. Let's see. There it is. Get a little. It looks okay. I mean, you can't tell much from the tip. We won't know for a little while. I'm not worried about it. Let's go around and see if there's any stuck water left. Isn't that pretty? Each one of these plants has a story on it. That is my seedling from my Singapore right there. Isn't that funny? The leaves look like a Singapore. I forget, this I think is my peach one from No Willy Willy in Kauai. Finally bloomed for me like 7 or 8 years later. It's got a great smell. This is the one I got, forget the name of that one. Gulf Coast or something like that. The one I got for speaking at the Plumeria Society in 2008. Anyway. My Mary Helen Eggenberger from Kathy Mraz. Awesome friend. And some various gifts and things I bought over this is the small end of my collection. In case you're wondering, I've got 6 times this many at least, and a lot bigger. A lot of them are like 8 feet tall at my other house. Anyway. See, I watered my night blooming jasmine. Ow. My foot hurts from wiping out on that skateboard. More like kills. I can't believe I fell in that video yesterday. I decided to leave it in though, for realism. So you knew I wasn't cutting and pasting these. Ow. I'm in one shoe. And then not another shoe. And an unshoe. Alright, pyrometer on the granite slab. This is my blue Thunbergia vine. And I always feel sorry for it because I can't put it in the ground and really just take off. You know, these get really giant in Hawaii. This is my orange tree. Doesn't get enough sun. I've got lemons on my lemon tree in there. But you need water. Okay, let's go in here and look. I have that giant Chinese silvergrass. When those giant stalks die, they make great, I didn't even know this when I got the plant, but they make great steaks. And I get more new ones every year. Okay, let's look at our little cutting from yesterday. No stuck water. Let's look at the tip. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It looks pretty good. It looks like it's starting to respond to the sun here. Stalk is still firm. Everything's firm. You know, it will stay firm when the roots are pushing the water up through the plant. You know there's a root rot starting usually if the plant starts getting soft. Most intermediate people know that, but just mentioning that. See if I can move back and get a good look at it. Well, you can see, I can see a little bit of movement there, which is, you know, standard for the first day it's been out of a box, and who knows how long it's traveled over the Pacific and how long it was off the tree over in Thailand. I don't know. But anyway. Yeah, I've heard a lot of horror stories about it's getting a little bit of shadowing from my giant pine tree here. And I don't have the heart to cut down trees like I know some people do, but it's only about just a little bit of shadow. Just a little bit. Anyway, I've heard some horror stories about cuttings coming over from around the world. People losing hundreds and hundreds, and this is going back years ago, not just recently. And one of the things that makes it hard to get a finger on is nobody wants to admit their failures, and it's a human trait, and I understand that. Because first thing people start doing is, well, you must not know what you're doing, you know. That's another part of human nature, a part of human nature I don't like, but because everyone should be able to learn at their own pace and not have a lot of judgment on it. This is a nice Aztec gold I got from a friend. Look how well it's doing. This is only a year old. Can you believe it? Maybe 2 years. But it's a grafted plant, and it really has done really well for me this year. What was I saying? Anyway, you should be able to learn at your own rate. And people don't know when there's failures. You don't hear about them. You kind of get swept under the rug. Well, I guarantee you, when they're coming over across the Pacific, they are in danger of rotting when they get to a new climate. And a lot of that has to do with acclimation. And that's a word I learned on the internet from people who actually grow corals in aquariums, sea coral. And they have a huge problem with that. You cannot send it across the world and have it show up in your fish tank, and you've got to ease it in, even way more so than plumerias. Well, plumerias are the same thing, We tend to think of plants as just plants, you throw them somewhere and they just grow. We forget about the millions of years of evolution that have gone into creating this variety. For example, Plumerias. Plumerias are at least 15 to 20 million years old, probably older. And they have developed certain mechanisms. Like, there's probably not anything that I know of other than a cactus that's better at drought tolerance than they are. I mean, certainly in my garage, in the wintertime, all the weeds have died. I haven't watered them for a month or two. All the weeds have died and they're still alive. They're fine. So they can handle the heat. You put out leaves. And they can handle the drought like pretty much nothing else. And they grow pretty tall too, and they put out beautiful flowers. So we tend to think, okay, well, they've come across the country or the world, no big deal. We'll just put them in soil, and we forget the roots are all adapted to growing in another part of the world or another mix or in the ground. And the soil is different there, the microbes are different there. We bring them here, throw them in a heavy soil, and we think, hey, it's 85 out. There shouldn't be a problem. But we need to be thinking, I think, in terms of acclimation and slowly getting them used to where they are, being sensitive to where their weak points are. In this case, it's their roots. They are more, like I said yesterday, they're more epiphytic, and they would rather grow in much lighter soil, especially when they're stressed out and when they're small. When you get a lot more, I said all this yesterday, but you do get a lot more flexibility and forgiveness when they get bigger. They're a lot tougher, but I like to think of it when they're small, they're still deciding whether they want to live or not, and they're searching around and seeing this mix I'm in is horrible. I can't handle it. I can't get oxygen when everything is stuck to my roots, wet like a mud. And so they just end up dying and rotting, and we see that as a rot, and we go, oh, what happened? Or, you know, but really what we need to think of is, okay, they need a lot of airspace. You can see some of them that didn't have a lot of a root system. I went ahead and put them in bigger chunks with no perlite. Even though these were from my tree, but they sat in my garage for 6 months just on a shelf in practical darkness. But they're doing okay. They're getting adjusted. This is another one here. This is my Valentine. This was one that was really stressed out when I got it. Even though it was grafted, I thought, oh boy, it's a goner. I mean, I took it out and it was holding water. The first mix I put it in was holding water. I took it out of that mix, put it in another one, and it still didn't take off until I really started to put it in huge chunks of pine bark mulch. And I really watched it, and I made sure that on really super hot days it wasn't stressed out. I was trying to minimize the stress, because we'll get into the hundreds here in Kansas City. And when they're still struggling to fit into their little world here, they don't need stress like that. They don't need a night of 50 or a day of 105 in full sun. So try to be sensitive to those things. And now, as you can see, it's tough. I mean, it can handle it. Bloomed for me from January to, say, in the south window here, in this window, January to, say, June. And so I didn't get a seed pod on it. I was kind of hoping I would, but I mean, I'm not worried about it anymore. I've got it through the valley of the shadow of death. I got it through its weak time, and I built its strength back up. That's how I like to see it. And now it can handle pretty much anything. I'd leave it out in the 30s with rain. I'm not worried about it anymore. And you don't know, too, you got to think about this also. Did the cutting come from the top of the tree? Did it come from the bottom of the tree? The top of the tree cuttings, as a rule, are generally better from around where the apical stems are on the tree. Was the tree sick? Was the tree from the wet side of the island? You know, those trees aren't going to produce as good cuttings as the ones that are getting full sun. If you look at a lot of the cuttings out of California, they're so thick because they get sun constantly. We get a lot of shade here in Kansas, too much for my liking. A lot of rain, which is nice, but we don't get the wall-to-wall sunshine that a lot of the places out west do, in Arizona, California. and the dry sides of the islands in Hawaii. But anyway, I think that's good for now.